Let's start with, of course, the premier award, the best overall player in college football, our three-tech Podsman, the Heisman. Our candidates, we selected 5, and these are not going to be the same ones that you saw in New York because, frankly, I was horrified at what the voters put in New York. So we do start with Caleb Williams, quarterback from USC, Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud. We have also, at the Three Tech Pod, invited Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker to the award show because, duh, that should have been a no-brainer. And then 2 running backs because we are not quarterback elitists here at the Three Tech Pod. We've also invited Michigan running back Blake Corum and Texas running back Bijan Robinson. Gary, as we look over these candidates, where would you like to start and just kind of going over their stats, reliving their season at a very high level?
Man, well, I'm going to start with the 2 running backs, actually. Corum and Robinson. For me, I hate that the Heisman has kind of become this, quarterbacks only award. And I realized that just a couple years ago, a wide receiver won. But that's very much the exception, not the rule. It
Mhm.
seems like, 80-90% of the guys invited are quarterbacks. And even when you invite a defensive player or a running back or something like that, it never really seems like they get a chance. So I want to start by highlighting 2 of the better running backs that college football's seen in a while. First off, I'm going to start with Bijan Robinson. The numbers on the year: 1580 yards. He averaged 6.1 on the ground, 18 touchdowns, and then also something that I wasn't even, maybe aware of as much because I hadn't looked into it as much. Finished with over 300 receiving yards and added a couple touchdowns there. Finishes with 20 total touchdowns from scrimmage, no fumbles either. A remarkable season for him. He was such a big part of what they wanted to do on offense in a year where, realistically, I don't think, and I think a lot of Texas fans would agree with me, they didn't get what they thought they were going to get at the quarterback position, not
Mhm.
consistently at least. They had some great performances and some, head scratchers, right? And that's what happens when you have a younger quarterback sometimes. And also in a year where I think a lot of the receivers that they were expecting to produce really weren't there. And maybe that had something to do with the quarterback play, but I think Worthy had a worse year than I think a lot of Texas fans were hoping he would have. And so what happens? Bijan Robinson puts the team on his back and just handles it, right? He had a great season. He a lot of times seemed like he was the only thing that was going right. Him and Roshan Johnson, his backup, they're balling at times, and so I think Bijan obviously should have been invited at the very least. Maybe out of 4, he might have been number 5, barely 5th out, but I do think he should have deserved at least more consideration than he got to be there. And then Blake Corum. I mean, talk about a guy being the team's offense for so much of the year. Corum finishes with 1,463 yards, 5.9 average, 18 touchdowns as well for him. He had 8 games of 100 plus yards rushing and 243 against Maryland, which was a game that they did not win by as big a margin as they probably should have. I think,
Yep.
if I'm remembering correctly, that was their first real game against a team with a pulse or
Yeah.
anything close to like a full roster. And so he had a huge game there, kept him in that one, kept him in so many games this year. Obviously, the injury against Illinois kind of maybe limited the numbers that he could have had to finish the year with. I think if he was able to finish the season, he probably would have gotten an invite to New York. But, ifs, ands, and buts, we're not going to go there with it. At the end of the day, he was one of the more explosive players in college football. He was must watch when he was on the screen. And man, I just thought these 2 running backs had sensational seasons in a year where quarterbacks didn't necessarily step up to win and to show you that they were the guy. I think we talked about this a little bit. The quarterbacks didn't really prove to us this year that any of them deserved it more than the other one. Why not give a running back a chance, right? Why not give a running back that was the team's offense, that showed that he was that guy, that he could pull through in the clutch, especially a guy like Corum where they needed him in situations to win, and he did not fail to deliver for them all year long. So I'll I'll save my musings on the Heisman, at least the extended edition, for another pod. But I think that these 2 guys deserved to be in the conversation, and honestly had a couple of incredible seasons that I sure won't be forgetting anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. It really has become the quarterback invitational up there in New York, and I don't think that's really what the award is supposed to be. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, and there were 3 of them that we invited. USC quarterback Caleb Williams had the most impressive total season, I think, over 4,000 yards, 66% pass completion percentage, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Ohio State's quarterback CJ Stroud, Not as big of a season as I think a lot of people expected, including myself. Over 3,300 yards, a 66% pass completion, 37 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So you look at the stats and you say, what are you talking about? That looks like a pretty good season to me. In the biggest moments, though, specifically against Michigan, right? He
Yeah.
really struggled, and
Or
just
if it was windy or something.
yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I'm not going to hold it against him for 40-mile-an-hour winds,
No,
but
I'm just messing. I'm messing.
just not, and they only lost one game. They're in the college
Yeah.
football playoff, so maybe we're being harsh, but I think in the one moment that he needed to step up at home, he did not do that. And then Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker, he was the Heisman front runner like 2 weeks ago, and then he gets hurt, and suddenly he's not even on the ballot anymore. I think that's
Yeah.
just a miscarriage of justice by the voters for the Heisman, which just increasingly make me scratch my head. 3,100 yards, but again, that's in 10 games, or well, I guess 10 and a half games.
10-ish, yeah.
69% pass completion, 27 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. So an incredibly efficient year from Hendon Hooker. All of that said, though, and with the running backs considered, there still is one player that when you do a blind taste test, when you look at what they did, clearly, maybe not head and shoulders, but the clear pick for our Podsman. He won the Heisman Award, and we will give our first annual 3-Tech Podsman to USC quarterback Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Did not get it done in the Pac-12 championship game, but I think a bright future ahead for USC.
Absolutely. And look, he's going to continue to be a thorn in the side of the college football world for a while. I am scared for Utah next year based on the way that it went this year. I mean, obviously, you got him twice. Losing Clark Phillips, who we'll talk about actually in a little bit, is going to be an issue for them. And I think he's going to just take it out on Utah next year. If you take out the 2 Utah games, flawless season for Caleb Williams. I mean, I can't remember what it was, but I think at the end of the UCLA game, they put a graphic up on the screen, and he hadn't passed for something like less than 340 yards in the past 6 games or something like that, just putting up insane numbers from the quarterback spot. A little bit of a slower start, I think, to the season, but man, he just kind of caught his stride there a couple games in and never looked back. And, if he was able to maybe win 1 or 2 more games, we could be talking about one of the more special seasons we've ever seen. As it is, definitely worthy of the Podsman this year.
Yeah, I think we didn't come into this award show just totally sold that we were going to give it to him, but then once you type out the stats and numbers, it's where you got to go. So congratulations to Caleb Williams, many national awards, and also now he can add a Podsman to his trophy.
Which really is the one that matters.
That's right.
Gracious, how about